are the descendants from the original native people in this land. They were planted on this continent called Americas today. So we spread out all over this land, clear to Central South America, clear to eastern shores, to western shores, clear up north to Alaska, beyond, up to the edges of land. When white men came, they started to turn that things upon themselves, upon the land, and upon every living thing on this earth, and forgot the law of the Great Spirit. And so we see that many of our people have been destroyed because of his ways. Even though he brings this black book called Bible today, warning them everything in there. But they put that aside and do many things because their eyes only see material things to make money or commercialize it or to make, they think they gave them power when change it to something else. Sooner or later, Mother Earth's going to start shaking its body, and it's already happening. More earthquakes, more flooding, rain that become destructive, lightning become destructive, wind going to become destructive, more and more, because somebody started disturbing nature's balance.
This is what it was all leading up to where we're at right now. One of the most critical periods of time in our history. Well, Bonaparte and some of the great chiefs from my nation talked about these things to happen. They even talked about the silence of the drum that you heard here tonight. They even talked about us losing our drum for a long period of time. They talked about the rebirth of the spirituality of Indian people. In our prophecy, they talk about in the 5th generation that our drum would come back to us.
Las actitudes de las grandes empresas.
The big companies say that we Indians are savages, uncivilized, lacking in culture. These attitudes are criminal for us.
Esto es lo que el pueblo indígena reclama.
We demand the right to live on our land with dignity and equality. Everyone worldwide must be in solidarity with our cause.
Y a esto es lo que tienen que solidarizarse los diferentes grupos humanos del mundo.
The human rights groups must be in solidarity with us. Working people must support us. All people who love justice, who love liberty, who hold dignity dear, everyone truly aware of what it means to be a human being, must be in solidarity with us.
Ese pueblo tiene que solidarizarse con nosotros.
Bueno, nosotros, la Confederación es la que agrupa las nacionalidades, Aymara, Quechua, Tupi-Guaraní.
Our confederation embraces the Aymara, the Quechua, and the Tupi-Guarani Indians. It is the true representative of these great nations.
Hay otros, digamos, historiadores que siempre han tergiversado nuestra historia.
The historians have always twisted our history. Now we, the Aymara, the Quechua, and the Tupi-Guarani, will write our own history without any distortion.
A escribir nuestra propia historia sin tergiversar.
Two versions of history tell the story of the Indians. White men's history books tell of ancient civilizations now exterminated, known only through ruins and remnants. Indians point to their living villages, cities, whole countries of Indians as evidence of their continuing existence. Indian history, rarely told, more rarely listened to, tells of a single people spread across both American continents. A single people whose ceremonies and languages may differ, but whose basic beliefs are all the same. Indian history is a story of survival. Though their past extends back through thousands of generations, Their present began with the Spanish conquest of the Americas and the arrival of the white man. The battle began 500 years ago, and there is still no clear winner.
Columbus Day to me is a day of national mourning. It means that at one time, before this day, we were 90 million people in North and South America. By the time the federal government was created, through the people that came on this boat, 3/4 of my people were dead. It means the desecration and rape of my mother, Mother Earth.
Columbus's great discovery opened the new world to the onslaught of the conquistadores and the arrival of Christianity. Indian lands held valuable resources, and Indians were troublesome obstacles to be removed.
En nuestro país, el gobierno
The government of my country considers the Amazon region open territory, as if no one lived here. This is absolutely false. There are 6 different tribes here, many thousands of Indians, and we have always lived here.
Indígenas que hemos vivido desde hace muchos años. Entonces, pues,
So when they hand out oil and timber concessions to colonize the jungle, all the government thinks about is money.
el gobierno solamente piensa en dinero.
The threat to Indians in the Amazon is development, the rush for oil and minerals that pits the demands of industry against age-old Indian claims to the land. A little landing strip in a town called Coca is the spot where the developers touch down. Technicians and geologists arrive here, scouting targets for multinational oil companies and agribusiness conglomerates.
Vienen antropólogos, sociólogos, arqueólogos, botánicos,
anthropologists, sociologists, archaeologists, botanists. All kinds of characters come here from other countries, always to research the Indian.
De tantas materias siempre son con el indígena.
We always say, why not make the research mutual? You research me, and I research you. We'll get to know how you think, and you'll get to know how Indians think. But it never happens. What they do is take, and we end up with nothing.
Y con eso nosotros no ganamos nada.
As the forest falls to the machines and there is money to be made, the landscape is transformed by the turmoil of commerce. Coca is the furthest outpost of a rapidly encroaching world, a center of trade on the frontiers of Indian territory. Its presence signals a change in Indian life. The main thoroughfares here are the rivers, busy with the traffic of the new industries. Indians living deep in the forest travel the river Napo to Coca and cross over into another world. The dusty frontier town symbolizes the promise and the failure of development. Here, Indians can buy cheap polyester clothing or their first pairs of shoes, but most goods are too expensive, and only the white settlers can afford them. Here, skills and traditions are forgotten, and Indians swell the ranks of the poor and unemployed. Ecuador is typical of what's happening to Indians all over the Western Hemisphere. New oil fields and roads penetrate the forest, demolishing Indian homes, villages, and communities in their wake. Giant pipelines crisscross Indian land.
El problema petrolero es uno de los problemas muy grandes.
Oil exploration is one of the biggest problems confronting Indian communities here. The government didn't foresee the impact this would have, the environmental effects of oil drilling. Our air is polluted, our rivers, our forests.
Dañan nuestro ambiente, nuestro aire, nuestros ríos, nuestra selva.
The government opens up roads and highways to settlers invading our land, land that always belonged to the Indians. We are being forced to give up our culture in order to survive. We are being destroyed. We are losing our health. There is sickness now that never existed here before.
Equatorian Indians are now working together to hold back the onslaught of industry and gain ownership of their traditional lands. Alfredo Viteri is the head of the Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities of the Equatorian Amazon, a young organization dedicated to the defense of Indian lives and property. Valerio Grepa is a Quechua Indian organizing people in the Amazon territory. Inocencio Macanilla works nearby as a regional representative. This part of the world is changing rapidly. The services of the Indian organization are in constant demand as Indians run afoul of laws and regulations that were never before a part of their lives. Today, a young woman and her mother are looking for help. The woman's husband and brothers were arrested in a land dispute with a white settler who pushed them off their land to get their lumber. The Indian organization has an office in Coca, and Inocencio will work for the release of the men. The women speak only Quechua and are unable to communicate in Spanish with the authorities, so Inocencio will speak in their behalf.
Esto suscita casi a diario.
This happens almost every day here. When we Indians demand our rights, the authorities declare that we are in revolt.
Argumenta que la gente indígena está sublevándose, no.
But as Indian leaders, we don't consider this an uprising. It is merely a claim for our rights.
Meramente reclamamos nuestros derechos.
An obstacle to Indian organization is the weight of centuries of paternalism, of classifying Indians as little more than large children in need of discipline. Many Indians blame the Christian church for a condescending attitude that teaches docility. Indians learned to rely on the missionaries' wisdom for guidance. Plans for industrial development met little resistance at first, Indians say, because they had been taught to resign themselves to whatever fate had in store.
Como consecuencia, los nativos están paternalizados.
The result is that Indians are accustomed to paternalism. It puts a limit on your own ability, because you rely on others to take care of you. This doesn't seem right to me. People and countries should develop themselves through their own efforts. I believe in the self-determination of the people.
Yo creo en la autogestión de los pueblos.
Es importante
It is important to emphasize that the Indian organizations are not born because some priest or the government told them to organize. They are born of the very need of people to survive. Without organizations, we will be destroyed. We will die. We will disappear.
Sin organización vamos a morirnos, vamos a acabarnos de la tierra.
The decision to develop the Amazon, arguably beneficial to the nation, strikes Indians a powerful blow. In the face of bulldozers, the choice to remain uninvolved does not exist. Like it or not, Indians have no alternative but to join the industries tearing apart their way of life, or to forge organizations to confront the tide of history. In the United States, as in South America, land is a critical issue for Indians because they have already lost most of what they had to a civilization that rarely stopped to see the destruction it wrought. The Indians still able to live in the traditional way are few, and they face tremendous pressure to change. The Navajo are the largest and most powerful tribe in the United States. Catherine Smith is among the last of the Navajo elders, the inheritor of an ancient civilization. She lives on Big Mountain, deep within what is now the Navajo Reservation of northern Arizona. She speaks English with difficulty and lives according to the traditional Navajo beliefs. And although she is old, Catherine Smith may still live to see her Navajo way of life come to an end.
Long time ago, when the Navajo was being started, we came from tornadoes and Mother Earth with the song and prayer. This is the Navajo religion's way. This is our special bundle. They call it Six Sacred Mountain. This is what we raise on our kids. This scene is if your son is going to the war, get into the war to be ready to go, you had to pray with this one. So this is tornado kind, and this is the Six Sacred Mountain kind. This is my granddaughter, and this is my grandchildren.
Catherine Smith is the mother of 10 children. Through the sale of livestock and handmade goods, she was able alone to put all her children through college.
And this is my son. This is Kennard Smith.
On the weekends, I come back to Big Mountain to help my mom do strenuous things. At the present time, I'm looking for a electronic computer technician's job in Phoenix. There is a big problem, you know, because as you see here, there's no electricity, you know. That in turn is there's no electronic components, and what I've studied in the computer field, you know, I can't use here. So I'm at one place trying to make ends meet, and same as my friends are, you know, the other places trying to make ends meet. So it's everybody's looking for, you know, they're struggling to survive.
My kids, they all went to school and finished their school education, and they keep on college, but some of that they don't know, understand the Navajo. No more the Navajo words for the youngest one, especially the grandkids. They don't understand us. So these are young kids, they think they are white people now. They are believe on the Christian. They are believe on Bible. So this is going to be the end. No more traditional prayer and no more traditional song. It's going to be the end of the world.
The Navajo world has been under siege for over a century, since 1864, when Navajos from all over the Southwest were rounded up and force-marched off their homelands in what was called the Long Walk. That 400-mile midwinter march across New Mexico, followed by 4 years in concentration camps, nearly demolished the Navajo people. The survivors were dumped into the forbidding mesas that had been the homeland of the Hopi Indians for thousands of years. The two tribes were compelled to share the same limited area, igniting a dispute that both tribes say was exploited by the government to loosen their claim to this land. The land dispute continues today, an immensely complicated court case that has resulted in thousands of miles of fences crisscrossing Indian land. Navajo Elder Quiche and Hopi Elder Thomas Baniaka are among the traditional Indians of Big Mountain who refuse to be pitted against each other. They are meeting to demonstrate their unity and to denounce government policies that they say are little less than outright theft.
Make it look like this, solving the dispute between Hopi and Navajo, the government saying that, but actually they are then creating this thing. So I looked at this area where the government now created divisions on paper and say this is Navajo land, this is Hopi land. Actually, this land belongs to all of our native people across the country, in every direction. We're not really fighting each other. It's a white brother, White House people over there, that's doing that to us, because they know that there's much mineral resources here, and they don't care what they do to the people.
Indians say the desire for minerals has led the government to a cruel plan, masquerading as the solution to the land dispute. In 1986, Catherine Smith will be among the 10,000 Indians to be relocated off Big Mountain. Navajos and Hopis gather in the wilderness of the reservation to define the threat they face.
And they want to strip mine. I don't know if any of you have been up north here to Peabody, just about 20 miles north of here. The strip mining that's going on right now. And their future plans, of course, is to come in this southern direction. That's what it's all about. Massive development.
Some of the richest veins of coal and uranium were discovered on the Navajo and Hopi reservation. The question of development is a dilemma for many Indians who live in poverty in areas of potential wealth. But traditional Indians see development as an attack on everything they hold sacred.
Our Mother Earth is living. She was built with coal and uranium, and yet all these are being wanted from by the government. And the liver is the coal, and uranium is the lung. So all these things are needed, and I guess they need it more and more to get rich out of our Mother Earth. And
have you ever wondered why our elders do not want to progress? But you see, happy people don't want change. That's why we still have primitives. Yes, I admit it, I'm a born-again primitive. A born-again primitive because I want to remain happy. I do not want change. Unhappy people want change. But they don't say they're unhappy. You see, they use their language to cover up their unhappiness, and they call it progress. And so from generation to generation, they keep losing their children, and they wonder why.
This fanc's been approved on the court, but they don't tell us what are they doing to us. going to do. They never told us anything.
In despair, Catherine tried to stop the government from fencing off the land. More than once she had shot the workers away.
So they want to take away from us. And they've been make a fence here. So that's why I done that. I shoot the workers away. Then they got me and take me to the jail. And they didn't know what to do with me, so they just turned loose. They want me to move away to somewhere, I don't know. But I don't want it, I want to keep here. I born here, my grandmother and my grandfather, great-grandma, and my spirit was here, and my prayer was Beat Mountain. So I just don't want to leave this land. And I'm going to be still fighting until my lives get to end.
The point is I'm an individual. I'm a human being. That's the point of it all. And in the sense that, oh yeah, the culture, and I have respect for my elders and my grandparents. I've slept on a dirt floor. I speak Navajo. I even write it and read it, you know. But the point is that does not put food on my table. That does not, you know, if my children are sick, that doesn't pay for the medical bills. That doesn't sustain life, you know. I think as a people, we've gotten to where we're just a big dependence on the federal government. Just for example, the Navajo tribe, I'm talking about average figures. We're spending $30 million in the Division of Social Welfare. You look at economic development, $800,000. That kind of a ratio, how in the world can you talk about developing the private sector or having a strong economy on the reservation? You can't. You know as well as I do, the backbone of America is small business. That's it.
Oh, I happen to be a Yankton Sioux Indian. We call ourselves He-Hunktawas, actually. And my father was an Indian who grew up on the reservation, was born in a teepee, actually, in 1878. They used to call me, when I first went to school, there goes the dog eater and that sort of thing. But kids can be cruel, but yeah, you survive. You got to live so that those people will accept you and respect you. Otherwise, I don't care who you are. You have to have that. And if you don't have it, and you want to fight, you want to say, lo, the poor this, or lo, the poor that, you can't help but get in trouble.
In 1973, some Indians decided that trouble was preferable to what they saw as the alternating hostility and neglect of the federal government. The seizure of the town of Wounded Knee, South Dakota, created a storm of controversy. It reminded the country that Indians still exist outside of the picture books and museums. After 2 months, federal troops entered Wounded Knee and arrested many of the protesters. But the organization that led the takeover, the American Indian Movement, or AIM, had become an important part of the modern Indian fight to preserve its identity.
The American Indian Movement formed because we felt that no one was standing up for Indian people. But we knew that night that we formed this movement that we were on a collision course with this government. We knew that we were on a collision course with its churches. And we knew that we were on a collision course with its educational programs that were stripping us of our very identity here in America.
Wounded Knee in 1973 provided a sense of hope. It gave us also the strength and the courage to continue to stand up, to continue to face the odds that we are faced with on a day-to-day basis, to struggle to provide something better for our children.
AIM has now moved away from a strategy of confrontation, but the defiance that was AIM's signature was fundamental to encouraging Indian pride. The determination to remain faithful to their Indian roots is evident in 4 men, all dedicated members of AIM, the Means brothers, Russell and Bill, Dale and Ted.
We were always taught to be proud of our Indianness, even back when it wasn't popular. We were always told that of who we are as Indian people, and that we had something, a beautiful past, beautiful history, beautiful people in our history that we could be proud of. And we were also brought up not to allow ourselves to be pushed around, so to speak, because Indian people have been pushed around quite a bit. But we were raised not to stand up for ourselves, to stand up for what we believe in, and to protect not only ourselves in a physical sense, but to protect our Indianness.
We call them professional Indians. We're a number of people that get into that, and it's fine if you can make a living at it. But you know, wearing your hair in braids and all of that sort of thing, it's an effect where you're noticed. You don't see many full-blooded Indians going around with their hair long. You take all the old-timers I knew, they became adjusted. What you have to do is realize that you got to get with the economy of the country, whatever it is.
After all these years, I finally come to see the light. But it's hard for an Indian boy to do what's right, especially when he's not white. 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 And I won't tell you that all that greed you see on them John Wayne movies is painted white. I said I won't tell you that all that greed that you see on them John Wayne movies is painted Hollywood white. And it's not right. 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 The reservation. Eventually, that of education.
There is nothing wrong with being Indian. The most respected red people in the Western Hemisphere are those that have stood up for their own Indianness. And I have learned this from my brother Bill. You can only move as fast as the people want to move. But I am an impatient man because I have been educated by the white man. And it has taken me, 16 years of his education. 16 years of my life I gave to him. 16 years of my life. I figure I'm a sophomore in high school as far as being an Indian is concerned.
We refuse to assimilate. We feel that it is our culture that is given this one hope of survival for us.
At a conference organized by AIM, Indian musicians from Bolivia were invited to play. The North American Indian, at less than 1% of the United States population, makes a lonely stand for his identity and rights. Bolivian Indians are engaged in much the same battle, but with a difference. The majority of the people in Bolivia are Indians. The streets of La Paz, Bolivia teem with Indians dislocated off their homelands. The burden is too great for the cities alone to sustain them. The thousands of Indians struggling for survival eke out a living from the rough urban stone. For most of the country's unstable history, with nearly 200 military takeovers in the last 100 years, the word Indian meant a creature doomed to poverty and despised by the white and mixed-blood elite.
Siempre nos ha dicho que somos indios, pero ha sido el Cristóbal Colón.
They've always called us Indians. Christopher Columbus came here and was confused and said it was India, so we were called Indians. Nowadays, we are proud that we are Indians. And because we know how to read and write, we are now peasants.
Entonces nosotros somos campesinos, ¿no? Trabajamos en el campo, en lo cual nos molesta indios, pero...
But here in the city, they still call us Indians, as if we were nothing, like an insult.
Cualquier cosa, ¿no? Y es como un insulto, ¿no? Pero pensándolo bien, analizándolo bien, es una palabra, es muy importante, ¿no?
But if you think about it and analyze it, it's a very important word. The Indians have always fought for their liberation, so for us, the word Indian is very important.
Una palabra más importante, ¿no?
Bolivia has a tradition of strong labor unions. In recent years, Aymaras, Quechuas, and Tupi-Guaranis direct the strategy and policy of the unions and see to it that Indian values are incorporated into the union agenda. The potential political power is formidable. The massive Indian Peasant Union, allied with the miners and other workers, forms the Workers' Central of Bolivia. Over 60% of the entire population of Bolivia are members.
Hicimos una reflexión muy seria.
We studied the failure up to now of all the Indian movements of our brothers in other countries. When the movement is placed in the context only of ethnic struggle, there are many dangers.
Cuando se plantea la lucha en términos solamente etnicistas, ¿no? Tiene enormes peligros. Por eso rechazamos la reducción.
So we reject the purely ethnic view, because it is a search for a return to an idyllic society, as if there had never been a period of conquest in our history.
Como si no hubiese habido proceso de conquista en nuestras tierras. Ahora, por otra parte, todos los proyectos revolucionarios basados...
On the other hand, all the revolutionary programs based above all on Marxist thought have reduced our struggle to purely class dimensions. So we would be only peasants, and not Aymara, Quechua, Maya, and so on. So the class definition is not useful, because it robs us of our identity.
No es útil para nosotros porque nos despersonaliza.
Our movement tries to integrate the ethnic dimension, what we are, with the class dimension. In this way, because we confront the capitalist system, we are revolutionaries.
Recently, the Indian Peasant Union held its second National Congress in La Paz. They brought together thousands of Indians from all over the country. To get to the city, many had traveled long, hard miles from the mountainous slopes of the Andes. These are ancient communities of Indian farmers and shepherds. They live in mud and stone houses, much like those their Inca ancestors built in Machu Picchu over 1,000 years ago. Isolation shields these regions from change and has protected them from the impact of the modern world. But, as in much of Latin America, failing rural economies are pushing Indians out of their traditional homes. Each departure potentially means a new member to the unions and a louder voice to the rising call for Indian rights. As they march into the capital city, there is one man who closely watches their progress. Paralyzed from the waist down, Genaro Flores can only observe the marches he used to lead. Before the Bolivian dictatorship ended in 1981, he was machine-gunned by government hitmen. Head of the union for over a decade, Genaro Flores is the most powerful Indian in the Western Hemisphere.
Now there is a great opportunity for the government to become truly democratic by showing to the Aymara, Quechua, and Tupi-Guarani that the land stolen from them by the dictatorship will be returned.
Nosotros no manejamos terminología.
We do not use the term Indian. Only our bosses, our exploiters, call us that, and they look down on us.
Son los que nos miran de arriba para abajo. Nosotros no nos sentimos de...
We know they are wrong. Why? We are Aymara, Quechua, two powerful nations in this country. But obviously all the governments, with the help of the US and the other outside forces, have imposed on us the names that they want. The colonialists brought the term Indian, but I don't even want to touch on the past. Our brothers, our communities, all the Aymara and Quechua, have suffered much repression, many massacres. For this reason, we must write our own history and achieve our own liberation.
Nosotros mismos nos vamos a dar nuestra historia, nuestra liberación.
The name of Tupac Atari, an Aymara Indian who led the first resistance against the Spanish in the 1700s, is written on signs and banners everywhere.
Tupac Atari was a man who fought for his people and their land, and who gave his life in the struggle. So for this reason, we have the Tupac Atari Federation. We women have the Bartolina Sisa Federation. She was the wife of Tupac Atari, and she also sacrificed her life, and even her children. So, we are following the path of Tupac Atari and Bartolina Sisa. Bartolina Sisa is still honored in Aymara songs of today.
We remember our brothers, Tupac Amaru, Tupac Atari, Bartolina Sisa, Tomás Katari, and Nicolás Katari, who took the first step in the liberation of Latin America.
Para dar la liberación de Latinoamérica, compañeros. También que sea oportuno para rendir nuestro homenaje.
We should also take the time to remember our comrades who were assassinated during the last dictatorship.
Durante la dictadura García, Mesa y Arce Gómez,
Until recently, people died for attending public meetings like this one. The military government attacked unions and jailed hundreds of union members. Bolivia now has a democratic civilian government. For the time being, unions are free to meet and plan. For this union, land is the central issue, as it is in all places with Indians, the profound, even mysterious relationship with the soil. The first goal of the union is the ownership of Indian lands by Indians.
At our National Congress, we said that we have planned and will present a new agrarian reform bill written by peasants, for peasants, and of course supervised by peasants. We believe that the current government and legislative branch, who must approve the law, are bound to deny it. But they know very well that we can apply strong pressure to make sure that this new agrarian reform bill that we have written is made law.
Our brothers in North America now find it very difficult to develop their own history and culture because of the brutal campaign to exterminate them. On the other hand, in countries like Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, Guatemala, the situation is different. We are still not assimilated into the capitalist system, for one thing, nor are we reduced to the conditions of our brothers in North America.
Difíciles condiciones como nuestros hermanos en Norteamérica. Los hermanos de Guatemala.
In Guatemala, our people have chosen armed struggle in order to regain their identity and develop themselves.
Para retomar su identidad y desarrollarse como su pueblo.
La subcomisión continúa a examinar
Naciones Unidas con respecto a poblaciones indígenas.
Indians are living through the worst time of their history. It is a decisive moment in the history of Central America. In Guatemala, there are many people dying, and the majority are Indians. They are being massacred, assassinated, tortured. We have nearly 400,000 refugees in Central America.
The crisis in Central America gives a greater urgency to the Indian decision to forge new defenses for their people. The forum is the annual conference on racism and racial discrimination at the United Nations, Geneva, Switzerland.
Although as indigenous people we do not fully agree with the terms of colonialism and neo-colonialism, it is about the closest that we can get in your language to what has happened to us historically.
Delegates from numerous Indian organizations came together to study each other's experience and develop new political skills. It is a first step toward creating an international Indian network capable of influencing governments away from policies that endanger Indian populations and the land on which they live.
Los pueblos indios hoy poco a poco están retomando su propia.
Little by little, Indian people today are recovering their national identities, their cultures, their own histories.
Yo creo que en ese sentido
I believe that here we can help Indian people become recognized by the international community.
Los indios sean reconocidos por la comunidad internacional.
We're here as indigenous people from all over the world, and our common thing is the fact that we are the first inhabitants of our nations, pushed aside and now told that we have to assimilate as minorities, and we're stating that we aren't minorities. We are separate nations with separate linguistic, cultural, and political traditions that should be recognized.
Well, as Indian people in the United States, we are very used to bureaucracy, and we are not intimidated by the United Nations bureaucracy. We realize the reality of the institution of the United Nations, that it doesn't offer solutions to indigenous people. It only offers a forum for us to educate the rest of the international community that we as Indian people still exist, that the cowboys did not kill us all. And we have a destiny as Indian people and for our self-determination. Indian people will solve Indian problems. We're not asking the United Nations to solve our problems, only to listen to us, only to offer us the opportunity to join the family of nations.
Hermanos congresistas, estamos dentro de una sociedad desquiciada.
We are in a wasted civilization, the Western, Christian one. I ask all my brother Indians to wake up and be aware of the situation.
No es el hecho simplemente de venir a los foros internacionales.
We were told this morning that this is not a center for complaints. But yes, I think it is, because we Indians have just won the chance to speak in places like this that were always closed to us.
Recién tenemos la oportunidad de hablar en estos lugares que siempre se nos han sido marginadas.
My dear brothers and sisters, we Indians are no longer alone or asleep. We have awakened to the modern era.
Los indios hemos despertado a la era contemporánea.
White people think they got power. Maybe tomorrow, wind's going to knock that White House down. Lightning's going to strike one of those missile plants. Earthquake, going to just cover it up. It's already happening. It is coming fast. This is, we like to tell the white brothers who are here to spread this out, to warn their people to stop those things right now. Because, like they say, now somebody's going to press the button pretty soon. There won't be any more living things on the earth. We're going to be like those ashes there.
The color